Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back again for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled today to have Bubba Startz. Now, first of all, you will note from his background, he is not from the great state of Texas, but he does have the name Bubba. So I hope we're going to have a South in there somewhere. So, Bubba, first of all, thank you and welcome to the pod. And could you tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Well, first of all, Tom, thank you so much for having me. Before about 6, 8 months ago, I would have told you that I was a songwriter and that was my greatest passion in life. But podcasting has become everything to me. I started the Scene Projects as a way to showcase my friends in the music industry like myself, especially here in South Dakota. You see the beautiful, the one and only Corn Palace behind me. South Dakota doesn't have a lot of media, it just doesn't have a lot of people in general. So we started the podcast talking to our musician friends. I found that I absolutely love having interesting conversations. And from there, it's grown into, 4 different channels now featured on the C-Suite Radio Network. We plan on expanding and continuing to bring in new shows and new creators that are also interested in the same things we are, which is just about anything from, get better together is one program we have where it's self-help and kind of that bent, but also our, the scene projects and sticking with our commitment to our music scene here in South Dakota and in the Midwest in general. So we're really just getting started. We're new members of the C-Suite Radio Network just in the last couple of weeks, really, but getting ready to crank up all of our channels into daily content and to just keep pushing this podcasting, I don't know, industry, if you want to call it that, I guess, to keep pushing it forward. I think this is how God or source or creator, however you want to describe that feeling, this is how we are connecting with that. This is how it is speaking through us, is by having connections with other human beings, whether it be in person or over Zoom like this. I have found a great deal of value in it myself, and I really enjoy sharing that value with the world.
So, what is the size of the town you live or music played in?
Well, the town I live in is Tyndall. That's about an hour south of where I am at now. It has 1,000 people. Mitchell, the town I am in now currently, is about an hour north of my town. It's where the Walmart is. We have another Walmart that's a little bit closer, but both the towns are relatively the same size. Mitchell, I think, might be a little over 20 or 30,000, going a half hour the other direction. Yankton, South Dakota is maybe 15,000. Our major metro area, where I think mutual friend of ours, Jeff Hazlett, lives, is Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and that's about 90 minutes northeast of me. So pretty far from any kind of, even at 200,000 is not really a metro area for someone from Texas, where you have metropolises like Dallas and Houston. But that's what we have. That's where I do quite a bit of my work at, that's where the people are. So unfortunately, or fortunately for me, I get to travel a little bit to do the in-person stuff and a lot of our, live events. But, with the beauty of the internet and technology now, and the fact that because of, our situation the last 5 years, everyone's very comfortable using Zoom. The platform has continued to grow, or platforms like this that you're using, Restream, are just wonderful. The technology's there for us to use, so let's use it.
So, I live in rural West Texas, and the biggest town is 20,000, and I live about 15 miles away on a ranch. And it has an incredibly vibrant local music scene, largely singer-songwriter types. And almost every dining venue above a McDonald's has a singer every weekend. And that's particularly true in the summer, but it's even becoming true in the winter. And I always talk to them, and, it's largely covers, but a lot of them will play original work. And what I realized 2 or 3 years ago was these guys, and they're largely guys, were building literally worldwide fan bases because they were streaming their work, and they were creating work in the studio that they could stream literally worldwide. And it allowed me to explore them in a way that I would not have been able to even pre-pandemic. And it sounds like you cracked that code as well. So it's a very long-winded way of asking you to talk about the vibrancy of the local music scene in your venues.
Well, and just like you said, it's very similar here in South Dakota. I think we're known for our large scale events. The Sturgis Motorcycle Rally brings, every bar has a band in it during that time. You have big acts like Jelly Roll and Kid Rock coming through and playing at the Buffalo Chip to, 100,000 people. But most of what South Dakota is exactly what you just said. It is small cafes, bars and grill, and they all have their own local musicians that come in and play. A lot of us here in the east side of the state in South Dakota we're able to hit a lot of these small towns. I play in several of them every year, but there was no outlet from there to get these artists out into the world. I think that a lot of South Dakotans are a little bit behind the time as far as the streaming and a lot of the using the technology goes. But I kind of, like you said, cracked the code. I went, hey, this is how other people around the world are doing this. Why aren't we? And if you're not going to on your own, then let me do it for you. And let me be your voice and let me be the one who makes you quote unquote famous. We've kind of taken that a step further with our online magazine and starting to write reviews on people's songs and to share their music. But one of our programs, the Songwriter Showcase, is just me on stage with a songwriter for an evening. I interview them similar to what we're doing here, but then I also let them share 3 or 4 of their original works. And then we post that out onto the internet as well. So you have this live performance now going out into the world rather than just the studio time. Studios can be expensive, Tom, if you're not doing it yourself. If you are doing it yourself, it's not cheap to buy all of this equipment to be able to do it. So we wanted to give a very, very affordable, and oftentimes we're able to pay our songwriters to be there to capture their content. So it was really just trying to facilitate more eyes on and ears on songwriters, and then just watching it grow from there.
Well, as a quick aside, I hope you'll apply to the Kerrville Folk Festival New Songwriters Competition. We have
I would love to.
the country's biggest folk festivals here in my hometown. Is 52 years old, and they have a podcast. Imagine that. So how do you help a creative think through the process of not creation or not being creative, but thinking through all of the things you're doing with the Scenes Project? So helping them understand, let me capture you in a format that then I can use, whether it's audio or video, and then not just put that out to the world, but market it strategically to the world so that other singer-songwriters might see it, other perhaps industry executives or other fans or people in Texas.
Well, and I will start with, we're not interested in the industry executives. We're not interested in, a worldwide audience is great, but it's really about a one-to-one connection. I know myself how listening to music has changed my life, right? How certain songs and certain times have helped heal me or have given us a thing. So what I have kind of made my mission statement is that I want to be the person who introduces you to the band that your wife walks down the aisle to, and to have that personal connection. And it really stemmed from a situation with my wife. The song that she walked down the aisle to was by an independent artist, a gal named Alexandra Kay, who has become a worldwide household name this year after touring with Jelly Roll all summer. But a year ago, she was in Sioux Falls playing to about 300 people. And I saw the way that she treated her fans. She had gotten TikTok famous during COVID because of her coffee and covers. She would make her morning coffee and sing you a song. And this is how she had her viral moment. And it led to her building a fan base and being able to go out and tour independently underneath of that. And then, a year later, she's on the road with Jelly Roll and they're touring arenas. being personally invested in her story changed my life. And that took us to, how do we educate all of our people? How do we first educate ourselves and then educating all of these people that I have this network and are part of my life already? How do I explain to them how to do it? And I've done that by just doing it, Tom. That's the only way that anyone's going to believe you anyway. I can tell you till I'm blue in the face, as blue as my shirt is today, that this is how you need to do it and this is it. But without the success story behind it, you're never going to believe me. And I can point to other examples and things, but for my people out here, nothing was going to drive that point home more than them seeing Bubba go get famous on his own and bringing all the people that have invested in me in that time, bringing them all with me. I always said that I'm not one in real life to open a door, walk through it and close it behind me. I'm the guy that will stand there and hold it for the person who's 100 yards away through the parking lot and is walking towards me. So apply that to being someone who is opening doors for themselves through my own networking and then sitting there and holding it through. I have friends that are a lot more talented than I am, Tom, and they deserve to ride that escalator up to the top before I do. And I want to do everything in my power to facilitate that for some of these guys like Clayton Ryan or gals like Alyssa Kaiser, who have been guests on my show and who I love their music. I love them personally. And I want to do everything in my power to help them. Yes, I would love as a songwriter myself to be invited to, folk festivals like yours in your hometown and all around the country. It's become much more community based, I feel like, in today's world, especially with the disconnection caused by, a worldwide pandemic and all of us going to this form of connection. I think after we got through the superficialness of it, that we're finding that we can still have very deep and meaningful relationships with people, even though we may be separated by thousands of miles or even oceans. Half of my team now that's helping me clip the long form content into short form and producing shows for me on the background, they live overseas. I have a team in Nigeria that helps with that, and I have a team in the UK now that are helping produce shows as well. And what that's created for me is one, a humbleness when you see your new friends in Nigeria and the life that they live, and you start to be a lot more appreciative of the things that you have as a United States citizen. But also, it allows me to really be working 24 hours a day. While I'm sleeping, they're already waking up and getting their day started. And while they're sleeping, I'm still grinding away. It's been a really interesting, and this is within the last week, Tom. I found a Facebook group, Podcasters of Facebook. It's 40,000 group members strong and growing by 300 plus a day. And I'm connecting with people by putting myself out there and beginning to form relationships. We are building a team that is going to support creators and empower creators to just create, while our team of promoters and producers are able to do a lot of that stuff behind the scenes. That's the much larger vision for what the Scene Projects is as a network and where I think podcasting is going. Podcasting is going to TV soon. I mean, mainstream media is completely dead in the water right now because they don't know how to connect. They've been telling everyone what to think and what to do for so long now that they thought it was going to be like that forever. And my generation, I'm 38, Tom, we're not having it. And the younger generation are having even less of it. They see through the lies. They see through the material BS that we've been fed for generations now, and they want something more. So I'm making it my mission to give that to them and to give that to them through a network of creators, not just the own work that I'm doing.
Wow. Let me turn to a little bit different focus. I was just at a podcast conference last week, and there is in 2025 this ongoing debate of audio versus video. And it's almost taking a religious fervor. Some say no video, never. Some say, well, the video people aren't at a podcast conference, so I don't know what they say. But a lot of us say it's another venue, it's another outlet, it's another tool. Why wouldn't you use it? we're recording this video. The podcast will be audio, but I've got a video feed with Bubba. Why can't I use that somewhere that takes video? What is your sense about this video versus audio? Are they separate tools? Are they complementary tools? How do you use those in the marketing component of your creative process?
The audio people are going to hate me, but content and video content is king. That's all there is to it. You look at the success of a company like TikTok, where 30-second videos were dominating the landscape. Obviously, that's changing a little bit here in the United States this week. But Reels and all of these things, Facebook is now incentivizing creators with massive bonuses for content of the short form video form, right? And that's to say that somebody who does an audio podcast can't put a graphic up and run that as video. But why would you keep yourself from YouTube and from these major markets when they're out there? If your mission is to, whatever your mission is with your podcast, some people are just strictly for entertainment value. I myself, I'm here to change lives. Why wouldn't I be where everyone is? And not everyone is using the same tools to listen. So while video is king, all of the audio from these feeds are going out on my audio podcast feeds as well. Spotify now is trying to hone in on YouTube's monopoly over video content and running video podcasts on their platform as well. So I really think that if you're in this to build a following and to change people's lives, you have to be doing video, even if that is just making a graphic where it's in the form of video. It's still just the audio, and maybe it's just a sound wave or something that's on there, or maybe it's just a static image. People on YouTube will find you and will listen to that. There's a religious fervor behind platforms. Look at what we just went through with TikTok this week, Tom, in the US. I don't know if your feed looked like mine on, on the different social media platforms, but you realize that how addicted people are to consuming content and consuming content from a certain platform. And not to get into whether content is some content is good or bad, no matter what it is, that's how it's being consumed. So I really think that you have to be everywhere. I think you can use the video as a complement to your audio, clips, reels. That's really what it's all about. We may do an hour-long podcast today. That could be turned into 51-minute clips, Tom. And then that's going out into the world, and all of this value that we're giving to each other here can now be packaged into shorter forms and really taking those highlights, putting those out there to bring people into the longer form conversation then, and then having them follow the shows, follow my show from there, follow your show from there, or multiple shows. I know you have a few as well, and then growing from there. And for me, if we change one life with each conversation, then we've really done something. And if we can, if we're doing that, I already have 115 episodes that are out there. So that's possibly 115 lives that we've already changed. Why would you ever want to stop? And why would you want to limit yourself by not being in all the places that are possible?
So in preparation for this interview, I found two, I don't want to say outlets, but two sort of initiatives of yours, the Scenes Project and Building the Scene. And listening to you, it sounds like there are more. So could you just list the major projects you have going on right now, Bubba?
Right. Well, the Scene Project the thought was always there. I kind of birthed this thing, and it already had 2 or 3 shows inside of it. The Scene Project itself is more of our interviews, short form interviews, 15 to 20 minutes with our friends, to let them just plug their stuff, come in, talk, tell a little bit of your story, let people get to know you, let them become personally invested in your story, and then let them go find the music. The Songwriter Showcase project was the kind of our first extra show in there. And sorry, I'm in my friend's office, so you can hear her phone ringing, but the Songwriter Showcase then became the live performance aspect of the show. A little bit of interview, but being the live performance aspect. Well, after about 6 months of running these, I started to approach some of my other friends because I wanted to get a little bit deeper. My friend Sarah Canada, who is my co-host of the Get Better Together project, she wanted to talk about self-help and talk about addictions and talk about, getting better. At first, the show was called Get Real. And once we got real, we realized that that wasn't what it was about. It was about getting better. And we were healing ourselves through conversations just with each other. So now we have plans to build communities around each one of these different projects. And then as the year wore on and I got a little more politically active, I realized that South Dakota has no independent media outlets for that kind of content. I started the South Dakota Patriot Broadcasting Network, which has now become the Patriot Broadcasting Project, to continue to bring the politicians and to humanize some of them, at least on a state level right now in South Dakota, but to start to educate people on the political processes that are ruling our lives. So each one has a separate bent, and all of them are featured on our website, rather, thesceneprojects.com. And then you can kind of find each one from there. And not every show is for every person, and not every feed is for every person. That's the way things are going now. So each one of these shows that I've just listed are really their own feed. Soon I'll begin to feature other creatives on the show, on their own shows, and they will kind of fill up those feeds for me, helping me release daily content with shows within the show. And when they're ready to go on their own and possibly release daily content just on their own, then they will be able to, do that through our network or through our larger network, the C-Suite Radio Network.
Let me ask you one, maybe two questions about the political pod. So I lived in Houston for 40 years before I moved to my current location. I had not lived in a small town since I was a boy. And when I moved here, I started a local podcast, started talking to local business people, start talking to local politicians, and it became pretty clear to me that the government of Kerrville was almost a public-private partnership between businesses, just citizens. We have a small university, and the people elected to public service. And I don't know if that happened in Houston, but I never paid attention. It seemed to me to be much more professional politicians running the city. And so I began to see politics in a different way, that you really could impact local issues if you chose to. And that was maybe self-evident to everyone else in the world, but it wasn't self-evident to me. And so I was wondering, is that your experience at the local level, or is it something different?
I think you hit the nail on the head. At the local level, it is that way because it has to be, right? City councils, I've had to go in front of my, city council in Tyndall and to speak with these people, and they're all my friends. They're the wrestling coaches, and they're my bowling teammates, and they're the people of the community. That was maybe my first introduction to local government, besides, the long arm of the law. But it led me to an interest, right? And I think what really showed me that was the fact that we had, our current sitting vice president and president going on these podcasts and being humanized. They were no longer just this person that the mainstream media was able to craft a narrative around. They were real people right there. I wasn't a big Trump supporter before I saw him talk. I was probably voting for him at the time regardless. But after getting to actually meet these humans and hearing them and hearing, their heart, I think especially with a show like Joe Rogan's podcast, where you have them for 2 or 3 hours, Joe kind of says anybody can BS you for an hour. It's in that second and third hour that you really start to be able to see who a person is. And kind of growing with that, we brought it to our local government. The Sioux Falls Chamber of Commerce are very, very heavily influential in our state government. So as a member, they send out to me a monthly magazine. The issue in December was Meet Your Representatives. So it had every single senator and representative for all the districts in Sioux Falls with their email on there. I grabbed all of their emails and sent them each, a template that said, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I'd love to speak with you. I had a few of the newer representatives reach out to me. They informed me that not only on the national level did we have a massive change and a massive, red wave, but even on the local level and the state level, that we had 44 new representatives this year that were voted in. Most of them being what, self-identifying patriots, people that were grassroots and got out in the community and stopped talking to people like they were all imbeciles. They started connecting with human beings. They started connecting with business owners. And through that, they were elected. And now, through my show, we can begin to maybe bring a little accountability to the state politics, as, guys like Steve Bannon or Charlie Kirk are bringing to the national level.
Oh, well, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted more information about yourself, any of your projects, connect with you, or go to your sites. What's the best social media platforms or sites for them to go to?
Best way to get to us is the website and join in our email list there, thesceneprojects.com, just as you see it on the screen there, thesceneprojects.com. Hit join our email list. I'm putting out content every day, which means I'll toss an email out with the new episodes and just connecting. Right now, it's me behind every bit that I do. I don't use AI to form a lot of our, written content. What you are seeing and reading is me. What you are hearing and seeing on your feeds is me, at least for the time being, until this thing grows and I'm able to, maybe invite more creatives into this. I'll never stop podcasting, but I've realized also that my value is more in the talent acquisition and kind of producing shows as they go and helping other creatives do what I've been able to do in the last 6 months. I will let your listeners know that I am writing a book. Building the Scene will be the name of that. We plan to kind of turn it into a seminar in person, a webinar. My goal is to do 1 million podcasts, and not to be a guest or to host 1 million. It's to start 1 million podcasts. There's 8 billion stories on the planet right now, each one of them unique, each one deserving of its time in the sun. Does that mean that every person needs a podcast? Probably not. But even if it's 1%, that's a pretty big number. So we're getting out there. We want to help everyone who's interested in using this media form to either grow their business as a lead generation tool, to share their story because it's possibly inspiring, or to just be entertainment, to just get together with interesting people and to have some interesting conversations. Find it all at thesceneprojects.com.
Well, I've never said this before on a podcast, and I usually say I hope we can continue this conversation, but I'm not even going to say that. We are. So get ready to come back, and I hope I can come on one of your pods.
Oh, I'd love to make that happen, Tom.